Okay, we're on to essay number 83 of our big, beautiful book, American Miscellany. This was published in 1865, and we've been reading through all the essays. We've just finished essay number 82 on courtship, which I hoped would kind of be lighthearted and cute and fun, and ended up being kind of like bloody and full of stabbing. I don't know. I don't think our next essay is going to be any more lighthearted. It's about Tyre, and already I know there's going to be a lot of mispronunciations. Anytime there's any essay on ancient history, I'm sure that I'm pronouncing everything horribly. So I'm just going to apologize in advance for that, but I'm still kind of excited about this one. I don't know if there's going to be any less blood in this essay, but it should be nice. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're on page 203 of American Miscellany, and we're reading essay number 83 on Tyre. But we linger too long on the east of the Jordan. Now we cross that celebrated stream. Our course lies due west, having on our right the cedar forests and the snowy peaks of Lebanon, and on our left the green swellings of the upper Galilee. Now we have gained the brow of an eminence which overlooks the Mediterranean. We have been too late by several centuries in arriving here, otherwise we should have seen a sight, as the saying is, worth seeing. From this height we should have looked down upon the walls, the palace roofs, the warehouses, the workshops, and the spacious harbors of Tyre. Here we should have been greeted by the city's hum, the rattle of the chariot wheel, and the anvil of the artisan. And here we should have seen the seas, to their utmost verge, whitened by the sails of her ships, some voyaging westward, some returning with the merchandise of distant lands. But no one who looks hence at this day, and surveys the silent shore and the solitary seas beneath him, could imagine that such a sight as we have now described could ever have been here beheld. With Ezekiel's magnificent prediction of the ruin of Tyre, we are all acquainted. We shall give Volney's version of the passage, not because he has succeeded in transfusing more of the spirit and sublimity of the prophet into his translation than our translators have done in theirs. He falls, we apprehend, far beneath them. But because he has substituted the modern names of places for the old Hebrew ones, and has thus thrown great light on the commerce of Tyre, a commerce which more nearly resembles that which Britain is carrying on at this day than anything else of the kind which the world has ever seen. Proud city, that art situate at the entry of the sea, Tyre, who hast said, my borders are in the midst of the seas, attend to the judgments pronounced against thee. Thou hast extended thy commerce to distant islands, among the inhabitants of unknown coasts. Thou makest ships of fir trees of Senir, the highest summit of Lebanon. The cedars of Lebanon are roasts to thee. The poplars of Bizan, oars. The cedars of Lebanon are masts to thee. Makes a lot more sense. The cedars of Lebanon are masts to thee. The poplars of Bisan, oars. Thy sailors are seated upon the boxwood of Cyprus, inlaid with ivory. Thy sails and streamers are woven with fine flax from Egypt. Thy garments are dyed with blue and purple of Hellas, the archipelago. Sidon and Arvad send their rowers to thee. Jabila, her skillful shipbuilders. Thy mathematicians and thy sages guide thy barks. All the ships of the sea are employed in thy commerce. The Persian, the Lydian, and Egyptian receive thy wages. Thy walls are hung round with their bucklers and their cuirasses. The sons of Arvad line thy parapets and thy towers, guarded by the Gemedians, a Phoenician people, glitter with their brilliant quivers. Every country desires to trade with thee. Tarsus sends to thy markets iron, tin, and lead. Ionis, the country of the mosques and Teblis, supply thee with slaves and brazen vessels. Armenia sends thee mules, horses, and horsemen. The Arab of Dedan, between Aleppo and Damascus, conveys thy merchandise. Many isles exchange with thee ivory and ebony. The Armenian, the Syrian, brings thee rubies, purple, embroidered work, fine linen, coral, and agate. The children of Israel and Judah sell thee cheese, balm, myrrh, raisins, and oil. And Damascus furnishes thee wine of Halbun, perhaps Halab, where there are still vines, and fine wool. The Arabs of Oman offer to thy merchants polished iron, cinnamon, and the aromatic reed. And the Arabians of Dedan bring thee rich carpets. The inhabitants of the desert and the sheiks of Kedar exchange their lambs and their goats for thy valuable merchandise. The Arabs of Saba and Rama in the Yemen enrich thee with aromatics, precious stones, and gold. The inhabitants of Haram, of Kalana in Mesopotamia, and of Adana near to Tarsus, the factors of the Arabs of Sheba near the Dedan, the Assyrians, and the Chaldeans trade also with thee, and sell thee shawls, garments artfully embroidered, silver, masts, cordage, and cedars. Yea, the boated vessels of Tarsus are in thy pay. O Tyre, elated with the greatness of thy glory and the immensity of thy riches, the waves of the sea shall rise up against thee, and the tempest plunge thee to the bottom of the waters. Then shall thy wealth be swallowed up with thee, and with thee in one day shall perish thy commerce, thy merchants and correspondents, thy sailors, pilots, artists, and soldiers, and the numberless people who dwell within thy walls. Thy rowers shall desert thy vessels. Thy pilots shall sit upon the shore, looking mournfully towards the land. The nations who thou enrichest, the kings whom thou didst gratify with the abundance of thy merchandise, trembling at thy ruin, shall cry bitterly in despair. They shall cut off their hair, they shall cast ashes on their heads, they shall roll in the dust and lament over thee, saying, What city shall equal Tyre, that queen of the sea? Now we are in circumstances to feel how completely the prediction has been verified. Look down then. You see this little clump of miserable houses immediately beneath, all huddled together on this low island, which scarcely rises above the surface of the water. This is all that remains of the crowning city. You see that basin for ships on the north, well nigh choked up with sand. There the fleets of the world were wont to cast anchor. A stranger from a far distant land passed this way not many years ago. He tells that when he passed by, there was only a single fishing boat in the harbor of Tyre. On the sandy plain which you perceive running up on the north of the town stood old Tyre. The army of Nebuchadnezzar lay 13 years on that plain. Every head was made bald, every shoulder was peeled in thy siege. But at last the city was taken. Every shoulder was peeled in the siege. But at last the city was taken. What's a peeled shoulder? Before the banners of the Chaldean army were seen on the plain before Tyre, and even before Nebuchadnezzar had projected the expedition, with what beauty had the prophet described the result of the siege. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will bring upon Tyrus Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, a king of kings from the north, with horses, and with chariots, and with horsemen, and companies, and much people. He shall make a fort against thee, and cast a mount against thee, and lift up a buckler against thee, and he shall set engines of war against thy walls, and with his axes he shall break down thy towers. By reason of the abundance of his horses, their dust shall cover thee. Thy walls shall shake at the noise of the horsemen, and of the wheels, and of the chariots, when he shall enter into thy gates, as men enter into a city wherein is made a breach. And I will cause the noise of thy songs to cease, and the sound of thy harps shall be no more heard. Old Tyre is now in ruin. The inhabitants had fled to a little island a very short distance from the shore. There they proceeded to erect a new city, which became the heir of the fame and the vast commerce of that which Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed. New Tyre continued to flourish till the times of Alexander, but as she stood in the way of the scheme of universal conquest which that monarch had formed, her reduction was necessary. In order to bring his engines of war close up to her walls, he found it necessary to construct a mound between the shore and the island on which the city stood. For this purpose he chose the materials which the place most readily offered. These were the dust, the timber, and the stones of old Tyre, which had lain here since the period of her destruction by Nebuchadnezzar. They shall lay thy stones and thy timber and thy dust in the midst of the water. Another quote, I will also scrape her dust from her. The arms of the conqueror prevailed, and the queen of the seas sank. She was soon rebuilt, but to suffer new calamities, and to come in the course of ages into the miserable state in which we now find her. When you come to it, says Mondrel, you will find no similitude of that glory for which it was so renowned in ancient times, and which the prophet Ezekiel describes. On the north side of it, it has an old Turkish ungarrisoned castle, besides which you see nothing here but a mere babel of broken walls, pillars, vaults, etc., there being not so much as one entire house left. Its present inhabitants are only a few poor wretches, harboring themselves in the vaults and subsisting chiefly on fishing. Before we quit the eminence where we now stand, and from which we look down upon the shadow of Tyre, let us observe how God has here inflicted his threatenings to the very letter. Here is the site of old Tyre, a sandy plain with the waves tumbling over it. When I shall bring up the deep upon thee, and great waters shall cover thee, I will make thee a terror, and thou shalt be no more. Though thou be sought for, yet shalt thou never be found again, saith the Lord God. Adjoining the peninsula on which the miserable village beneath us is seated, you perceive what you take to be dark rocks rising out of the waves. These are very convenient for the fishermen who here spread their nets in order to be dried. They are not rocks, they are the stones of Tyre, tumbled into the sea by her successive destroyers. I will make thee like the top of a rock. Thou shalt be a place to spread thy nets upon. Who now remembers this great city, whose fall resounded over the seas and caused this song of lamentation to be heard among its isles, a song which the prophet had prepared beforehand, and taught the kings and cities of the earth to sing when the mournful event should have come. We quote part of this hymn of lamentation and depart. Thus saith the Lord God to Tyrus, Shall not the isles shake at the sound of thy fall? Then all the princes of the sea shall come down from their thrones and lay away their robes and put off their broidered garments. They shall sit upon the ground and shall tremble at every moment and be astonished at thee. And they shall take up a lamentation for thee and say to thee, How art thou destroyed? Thou wast inhabited of seafaring men, the renowned city, which wast strong in the sea, she and her inhabitants, which caused their terror to be on all that haunt it.